probably underestimate how first of all, how difficult it is to build a team. Do you know, I don't know if you know this, across all the companies in America, if you look at every single business in America, registered business, do you know what the average number of employees in across every single, including the multinational corporations? What's the average amount of employees that they have in America?
No idea.
3.
What?
3.
Well, welcome everybody. Dr. Ron Oberstein, president of Life West, and welcome to another edition of our Life by Life West. Coming to us all the way from London, we have a wonderful guest today, Ryan Rieder. Ryan, thanks for being with us.
It's an absolute pleasure. I love anything just from this amazing family as well as Life West. So it's an honor to be here.
Well, I appreciate it. And we'll talk a little bit about Ryan and his chiropractic journey and his path. And of course, with us is my partner in health and my partner in life with Dr. Mary. So, hey, Mary, welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Perfect. Well, Ryan, you know what? You've got such an interesting past. And when I say past, I'm talking about, the last 12 years. And just for our viewers to know, Ryan graduated in 2010 from Durban Institute of Technology in South Africa. There's a chiropractic college there. He'll share a little bit about that journey. Right away after he graduated, he went to London, where he currently is, did an associateship for 2 years and decided it was time to start his own practice. So in his 3rd year, he started his own practice, and within 5 or 6 years, he had 8 practices built up, all in a group called the Halsa Group. And they're just seeing massive amount of people and amazing things. And from there, Ryan has just kind of kept growing and doing things. Right now, he's got 70 different offices that his company does marketing for. He's got 100 plus offices that he coaches, and just doing just amazing things, being 12 years out, but not I don't know, I wouldn't say not like just smoke, I mean, this guy's been in it. He's proven, he's got a great track record, and we are excited to hear, what's up, Ryan.
And now I have to live up to that introduction. So
You will. Well, tell us about the journey. First of all, you started in Durban, and I would say that probably 99.9% of our viewers, if you're the 0.1, then you know who you are. Maybe more, of course, but probably didn't even know there was even a school in Durban, Durban, South Africa. What got you into chiropractic, and share with us your journey?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think in the beginning of my career, I used to see all these amazing speakers on stage, and many of them had this amazing story of how they were either their lives were changed by chiropractic, or someone they know was changed by chiropractic, or they were adjusted from birth, and that just neither of those are my story. My story is I actually went to chiropractic college having never received a chiropractic adjustment.
Wow.
Yeah. And I always like to mention that because it's so funny, every audience I speak to, whenever I tell that story and I say, is there anybody else like that, like me in the audience? And there's always a couple shy hands that go up, and it's like this relief that comes off them, because we kind of wanted to have, I wanted to have that story, and I wanted to have that adjustment from birth story and all that, but the truth is I didn't, So I went to chiropractic school there, and the truth be told, I was obsessed with sport at school, and I just wanted to do a job where I wasn't behind a desk, if you will, and I went to observe a chiropractor, and I can remember it clear as day. He just looked like he was having fun, and he looked like he was chatting, and I was like, I think I can do this.
Wow.
Was there a principle, did you know about subluxation, and did you know about?
I knew nothing when I went to chiropractic college like that, and actually, if I fast forward, it's certainly not it's a checkered path, if you will, when it comes to my journey to wellness and vitalism. Is I finished chiropractic college, probably a little disillusioned about the profession, and it's not all that big in South Africa, or huge alumni and things like that. So support's a bit low, and they certainly are getting there now. But I remember moving to the United Kingdom with my now wife, who was my partner at the time, and we both qualified from the same class. And I actually wanted to. I remember I arrived in the UK. I had a story of a chiropractor. When I was a student, a chiropractor actually looked me in the eye who had battled in practice and said, "Look, I don't think it was my final year, by the way." He said, I don't think you should finish because it's so hard to make it." That was
Wow.
some of the influences I got like towards the end as I was graduating. Can you imagine, like 23-year-old, 24-year-old graduating, being even told like it's too hard to make it, you know? And I actually landed in the United Kingdom. My parents had already moved over, and I never forget, I downloaded the application form for a postgraduate medical degree when I arrived here.
Wow.
Yeah. I'd never heard really about I mean, I went to chiropractic college and maybe heard about the green books, like one, like, very little, hadn't been exposed to much of them. I barely knew what the word subluxation was at the time. And I remember, I downloaded the application forms for his postgraduate medical degree. And by the grace of God, I had to pay for this whole thing. And I walked into my first job interview, and I worked in my first job, and I'll never forget, I was in reception, and it was just something different. And it was the first time I experienced an open plan practice at that point in my career. And the biggest take home for me was the first person I spoke to came to me, and they were so excited about the future I had. And at that point, the patient I was speaking to, and I was a qualified chiropractor, had way more certainty in chiropractic than I had at that point. And I'll never forget because I had a routine discectomy and was partly paralyzed on one side, and said to me, "Young man, what an amazing profession you're entering into. I'm so jealous of you. I wish I'd studied chiropractic." And I was like, wow, like here's this patient who, like, I'm supposed to be the chiropractor. I'm supposed to, like, be this. And this guy's speaking to me about chiropractic. And that was a true story. My first day in chiropractic practice, or in an interview, really, we ended up getting that job and learning so much from that particular chiropractor. It was the first chiropractic patient I'd ever spoken to outside of college who sold me on chiropractic and was a patient. Anyhow,
Wow.
that's my story. And then the rest is history. I fell in love with chiropractic and went through. It wasn't at college, that journey for me. And that's the journey for me.
Well, and I always say it doesn't matter how you got it. It's like, here at Life West, when I talk to the students, they're always saying how they get so much out of the college and they're ready to go out.
Yeah.
You went out and then you found it.
Yeah, I think
Just so cool.
it's definitely, there's not this like I don't have this belief. There's lots of luck to it too. I think by the grace of God, I walked into that office and that day and that patient, and I certainly don't think I found chiropractic found me. And seek me out. So it is. I'm blessed to have gone through that journey.
Yeah, when you look at that and you see, going out, maybe disillusioned, I don't know, especially having someone say that to you right before you graduate, that can definitely plant seeds of doubt, but dude, you just kind of exploded, and all of a sudden, so after 2 years, you opened up your first practice, right?
Yeah, so I was an associate for 2 years. I have to thank my wife 100% for this. Dr. Ron, I know we both come from the same train of thought where we know who the real brain behind operations are. And yeah, my wife, I was 2 years associate, and I always said, I was gonna be 2 years and then 2 years and then invest or whatever in my own business. And she was really at that. It was 2 years. She said, right, she said 2 years. Are we going to do it? I didn't feel ready, And very, very quickly I went into practice, started a practice, went into business with another chap who had done a few multiple practices. I was 26 at the time, and then the true story is, he said, "What are you going to do next?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to do this practice and do another one, and then do another one and do another one." And then he said, "Let's do it together." And then we went from 2 practices to 8 practices in a 5-year period, and at any one time, 80 to 120 staff. And whether it's associates and support teams and CAs and all of that. And I think my biggest claim to fame that I like to talk about actually is really 2 things. One is the amount of CAs that became chiropractors.
Oh, that's great.
And we were averaging 1 a year, like over years, over 10 years, And then we even had the full circle of and I was there to experience the whole thing. The patient that came in through marketing, that got adjusted, that became a CA with us, then went to chiropractic college, and then ended up working for us as an associate. So
Wow.
it's just out, it was a 10-year journey for me as part of those practices, and it was nice to be there long enough to see something like that happen. Patient to CA, CA to chiropractor, chiropractor back to as an associate with us.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a blessed journey.
It's a beautiful, and well, Mary, you and I were over in London in November of
Mhm.
2019 with Dan Murphy, right? And Ryan, you had
Yeah.
us over at your place, and
Uh,
people just wouldn't believe. You walk into the office, and there's you go down this hallway, and you kind of swing around, you get into that big lecture area,
Mhm.
right? It's kind of dark, and it's beautiful because you could do movies and you could do all kinds of things. And I think a church used it on Sunday. Is that
It
correct?
did. And it,
And it was just lovely. And I
uh,
think you were telling me at that time, like the offices were averaging, I mean, it was like a huge number of new patients through all the marketing you were doing, like 100 to 140 new patients a month for all the different offices,
yeah,
something
no,
around there.
to the end there, it's anywhere from like 200 a kind of a week, 200 to 250 a week, depending on the week. But 10,000 new patients a year was kind of what we averaged over many, many years across the offices. So
Wow.
so it sometimes be 100 a week, and then all the way up to say 200 a week. But for a couple of years, we averaged over 10,000 new patients a year,
Yeah.
through all our marketing avenues and channels, and that was just
And
another passion of mine.
And when you
That's
look at
great.
that number, right, the question I have is like, how many were referred? Did you ever have it broken down on metrics of how many referrals, how many, were events that you did, and how many were digital marketing?
Yeah, we obviously did in-depth statistics like that, and it's so varied. It was just an interesting conversation, which we could go down this rabbit hole too. But it was such a varying. If you broke it down per chiropractor across the multiple chiropractors, the stats varied so much. And I know it's such a cliche, but all the marketing and marketing's my thing. I love it, and I can turn the tap on, and I'm good at it. But there's still no truer stat than the person that can generate the most referrals is always still the busiest.
Mhm.
And then our social docs, would always say that they were generating as much as 50% referrals, and then the rest. And then sometimes, in the beginning of your career, where you're not as adept at that yet, then they would be more reliant on external new patients, if you would, and be fed as such while they got a bit more of their confidence, etc. So I really saw ourselves as a bit of a training ground, actually, a finishing school, if you will. So you got kind of the confidence to get there with that.
Yeah.
Well, so I have a question. So in our practice, I could probably speak for Ron for this. We just want to show up and adjust.
Mm.
Unfortunately, you have an office and a business to run. So
Yeah.
in our practice, we just kind of split things. You handle this, I'll get this.
Mm.
When you said that you have that many employees and
Mm.
CAs, I kind of cringed at first, because like when things are going smooth, it's great. But when they're not, and there's onboarding and there's people you're letting go of, that was like the worst part of practice for me.
Yes.
How did you do that? How'd you handle that?
Yeah, I think look, Mary, it was just, and I was 26 when I went into the game of multiple practices, and I know people like say this, and I don't know if they say it for effect. Like, I really am not saying it for effect. I literally didn't know what I was doing. Okay, so there was absolutely no, it was really just go through the process. And I remember I was in the States, actually, and I went to a conference, and many people, when I say this name, will know the name, but when I say it wrong, you'll know. But doctor, not doctor, but Dan Kennedy is a marketing, if you will, consultant. And I remember him saying, it might have been 25 at the time, he said, your job is to go out there and make as many mistakes as quickly as possible.
Mm,
And I just took it to heart. So
that's great.
we went out, but yeah, build a team. I think that I'd say a couple of things. One is we probably underestimate how first of all how difficult it is to build a team. I don't know if you know this, across all the companies in America. If you look at every single business in America, registered business, do you know what the average number of employees in across every single, including the multinational corporations? What's the average amount of employees that they have in America?
No idea.
Three.
Mm.
What?
Three. And that is a testament to just how difficult it is to build a team, maintain a culture. It's undertaught, it's underspoken about, and probably we even give ourselves too much credit. I think it's the statistic is, if you survey a group of leaders, I think 80% of them will put themselves in the top 80th or top 10th percentile, which is statistically possible, right? So it's difficult, And I think we need to, I believe we need to talk more about how difficult it is and it's a positive thing. So we give it that gravitas and we go, look, you got to learn how to build a team. You got to learn how to hire. You got to learn how to set up. And then over my 10 years, it's changed. So, wow, Mary, like now, if you look at, people cringe when I say this, but you've got a millennial file your practice a little bit. So the values have changed,
Oh yeah.
It's interesting. And I'll segue into a story at the moment. I sat with a private equity group the other day, and the head of the fund is worth 300 million euros. And he said, just maybe we all fall into this trap. He said something, they were all talking about these new graduates that come out in their worlds, in the private equity world. And they were saying things like, in our day, we used to work till 10 o'clock. In our days, we would never ask for a day off. And these young ones coming out these days, and like as if in this beautifully timed movie, the head of the fund just looks across the table, like imagine the lights dim, the music goes down, everything perfectly timed, and he looks across the table and he says, guys, it's not them that has to change. It's us.
That's right. That's right.
And I was like, wow, that is, and I remember just that one sentence, it was like I've taken that, and it's true, that it has changed a little bit and there's values a little different, etc. So Mary, sorry to segue there off the point, but no, loads of lessons, loads of learning. I would say this though, I believe willpower is overrated. Environment is much stronger than willpower. So to answer your question, I always have coaching in me. I always have had multiple coaches and mentors.
Great.
Always have hung around successful docs wherever I could. Always showed up to everything from, the Wave, Life West conferences, whatever it was, because I kind of knew I needed to improve and get better all the time. So I just trusted myself, probably less than most people do. I knew I needed the help. I knew I couldn't do it alone, and I knew I didn't know what I was talking about most of the time.
Yeah.
So I think that was one of my blessings in the beginning, is that I really seeked out help wherever I could.
Well, you said something that was really important, and you talked about failing. One of your mentors said that, early coaches said that, go out and fail. And, we always talk about failing forward, So in other words, just keep moving and use it. And what can you do with it instead of failing backwards and not wanting to go again, right? Kind of deal. Tell us a couple of the big challenges that you had,
Oh geez, there's tons. It's interesting. What's his name? Lynch, the famous Peter Lynch, the famous entrepreneur. To your point, he said you're terrific at business if you get it right 6 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're terrific at it. You get and so we're so hard to say, oh, I failed or made a mistake and etc. And I mean, we built multiple practices, and I'll tell you some of my lessons. Okay, so it was probably one or two practices that didn't work. The lesson of it was, I remember one practice that didn't work, and it was in the middle of London, and it was the only practice. It sounds like so stupid thing, and you're going to go, of course why would you not have done that? But I remember I was on holiday, and my team walked around with an iPad just showing me the sites, and I was like, perfect, just sign the lease. But I'd never gone there with my own car and driven there.
Yeah.
Had I done that, it sounds like such a stupid thing, right? But it was the key thing to the failure of the practice. Was there, when I say no parking, I mean 0, 0, 0, nothing, nada. We would as a team avoid going there, because we couldn't find a parking to pop in and do management. Now, if we couldn't do that from a management perspective, how the heck were the patients supposed to be? And I hope I'm really, I mean, hopefully someone's watching this and going, oh my, what a rookie error. And it was, So something simple as that, because in the middle of London, middle of London, you can get away with no parking because no one is parking. But it was a suburb of London where people acted like a small town, where they drove to the practice as opposed to take public transport to the practice. And that was a single cause to the failure of that practice, is people would literally go, I can't overstate how I know that we could not go there ourselves as management. There was no parking anywhere. So that was one big mistake we made, and that practice, I really struggled.
How long did that practice stay open?
Probably 2 years, actually. 2 years. And it wasn't that I say you can make a beautiful thing about chiropractic, and I know speaking to converted, is that I've always said this: you can put a bench in a field in the middle of nowhere, and we can make it work. But making it work and it just working are two different things.
Yeah.
So we made it work throughout the period, through many periods, but it didn't just work. So there was times that, practice was 300 a week practice, for periods of it, when the rock star chiropractor was in there and the planets were aligned. But it was a challenge to make work for many reasons, for those reasons.
So what'd you do with it? I mean, did you move it? Did you like the
Yeah, we moved
town?
it. That eventually we accepted defeat.
Yeah, but you kept it. You stayed in the same town and just moved it to another.
It was London, so we had grown so fast that we had practice quite close to it, so it made sense for us just to amalgamate as opposed to fight that or keep on flogging that dead horse, if you will. It was a tough lesson, so you and then, by the way, we took that business from £1 million to over £5 million, 3,000 visits every single week for years. And you might have looked at the journey from the outside and gone, well, geez, he was 26 when he started and he went from there to there. Well, no one really that often talks about the failed practice that just didn't work and the idiot that signed the lease without driving there himself. But that's just one thing. That's just one thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it.
That's great.
Let's switch gears, and I want to kind of go into the marketing thing, because obviously you're doing amazing things. 10,000 patients, new patients, a year between those 8 practices. But it's just something's clicking, and obviously you're doing referrals and all that stuff. But talk to us about marketing and your concepts around it. Some golden nuggets you can share with our viewers.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think there's first of all, there's nothing new in the world. So I always like to start anything I teach with going like, just so we're clear. And yes, there's a few things I've invented, which I'll talk about now, but none of it's mine.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about this thing, we say it's such a cliche, but it's so true. We get to stand on the shoulder of giants, and all the old school stuff was great because it worked.
Yeah.
It's so funny, it's really got out of fashion now, is like health classes, and you go, there, nothing will ever be able to emulate and replace where you can do it. And I know we speak in sensitive times now with COVID and stuff, but nothing will ever replace, putting people in the physical room and serving and educating and getting guests to come. And that's as old as time. I mean, how long chiropractors doing that? So I'll stand up in an audience, for example, and this is funny, and I'll talk about it, and people will take notes like I'm some genius. And it's there's nothing new in the world. Most of the time when people come into my environment, I mean, I'm more reminding them of the stuff that they got bored of, stopped doing.
That's right.
Or just was, some of it just not sexy, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But it works. So my philosophy on marketing is, there's an old saying with marketing is 50% of all marketing works. We're just not sure it's 50%.
That's right.
So the worst number in business is 1. The worst number in marketing, 1. The worst number of new patient acquisition is 1, including just referrals. We love referrals. Who doesn't love referrals? I mean, we love referrals. And I'll say, but I operate any of my businesses and my life with a certain level of cynicism and risk mitigation built in, acting as if any one source can be taken away from me overnight. And it's often someone watching this and go, well, so referrals can't be taken away from me. But, true story, I had a good friend of mine who was wrongly accused of something, and front page of the newspaper, wrongly, by the way, wrongly put. And thank goodness, and his referrals tried it for a short period of time, because it was front page and it was completely wrong, the whole process, and they retracted and they said everything. But thank goodness he at least had embraced the process of multiple forms of new patients. So first of all, my philosophy is, Dr. Ron, is just, you've got to have multiple avenues to generate new customers. And the marketplace changes fast, Instagram and Facebook, and now TikTok's becoming a thing. But most of our audience, by the way, anyone watching this, most of our audience is still on Facebook. I know Facebook is for old people now, but guess where most of our patients come from. So don't throw out Facebook yet if you're playing around with TikTok and all that. And then all the old school stuff. So we call it on the ground marketing, which is screenings, getting out into community, health talks, health classes, all those stuff. We go to lunch and learns. I mean, we were doing at one point 5 lunch and learns a week in London.
Wow.
Prior to COVID, in cities. So getting into communities, I know there's nothing flashy or sexy about that, but driving across town and doing educational talk and getting, and just I know it's a cliche, but just tell the story. And those things work all the way to our new strategies was called, digital marketing strategies. And if I could share just a gem that we've uncovered through COVID was through COVID, we couldn't do screenings in our businesses. And I remember I sat with my head of marketing and we had been advertising on social media channels to drive people into educational classes in our practices, and very successfully. We might get 20 people show up, 30 people, and sometimes if all the plans are 50, but they're worth doing for 5. Anyone listening to this, you should be doing it for 5 people show up, because it's 5 lives you can change, 3 or 4 new patients per talk. And we looked at each other and we said, well, we can't go out into the public and do these talks, but what if we advertise on Facebook and just got them to come to us for a screening? And that, like, just putting that out. And so now, even in this last week, some of my inner circle members and my done for you clients that we do the marketing for generate like 50 new patients on a weekend, by the way. 50 new patients one day, 50 new patients one day. And they do this like what we call an in-house screening. So I always say it's nothing new. I didn't invent much, but I did invent this. It's an in-house screening. So all we did was change it up and advertised across our channels and asked people to come to the practice. And instead of calling it a new patient exam, we said the word screening. And for some reason, and we do both, by the way, some people just decide that they only want to come to the talk and they won't come to screening or the new patient exam, and vice versa. So I think that in marketing, we need to stop falling in love with how we want the customer to do business with us and offer multiple opportunities for them to do business the path that they may want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Mary, it makes you think back, right?
I know.
We call those patient appreciation days, and where patients can refer people in. And, in fact, I think that was it a patient appreciation day that kind of sealed the deal? Mary, when you were working with us.
Oh, yeah. You mean before we were together?
Yeah. Well, 100 and what was it? 100 and
100. It was over 125.
Yeah, in a day. In a day.
Amazing.
And it was supposed to start at 9 o'clock, and no one even showed up until 10, because it was just open. There wasn't appointments, just show up, right? And it was crazy. I remember that we were taking X-rays on people who would need it. We would take 2 X-rays on them, right? Examination and 2 X-rays. And remember how hot the tube got in the X-ray room, that we had to pack it in ice while they were using it, because it was going to explode. It was just rapid fire continually, lined up, right? Took us what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to process?
That's how we started. I think we started group report of findings, because we're like, now what do we do? So
you had to go on. At one point, you had to go one to many.
Yeah.
And I was the associate at the time. They literally threw me into rooms to do a report of findings, and I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I just went raw. I was just like, I finally just started. I had no script. I would just say, I would love to adjust you. They'd go, okay. I just used the I statements. I would love to do this. I'd love to do that. I'd never told them what they needed to do. And they go, okay.
Yeah.
So,
but what I love, Ryan, the gem that I got was that this can be done through social media. This can be done by drawing people in the community to the office, instead of just having to have patients go and bring people in, which we did. This can be done just by having people show up, right? Do a talk, do whatever. And that's what I love. I love the idea of being able to put a message out and having people bite on the message, come and see if it's right for them. And if what we're saying in the office is congruent to what the message was on the social platform, whatever you use, then boom, the percentages are higher to have someone take the journey to see about chiropractic.
Yeah, and it moves so fast, the whether it's the platform that changes or whatever it is, but it's all the same stuff. We have to be telling the story as often as possible. Now we've got other avenues to do that. But yeah, I think the biggest thing I can get across to any doc listening to this is just understand that the worst number in business is 1. And even if it's like, let's say these patient appreciation days, amazing, right? 100 and something new patients in one day, but we have to act as if, and this is a responsible business, that one avenue might be taken away from us. And in my businesses, they have before. For example, something like a great opportunity like that might have new legislature written that we may not do that type of marketing anymore, etc. And then this one bank or this one home run, you've been putting all all your eggs in that basket. Like, no, it's not if, it's when that either dries out or changes or the marketplace changes. So you must have multiple forms of new patient acquisitions, which is I'll just bang home about that all the time.
Well, I know that you're writing books, right? What are you on your third book?
Yes, we're on our third book now. So the first book I wrote was New Patient Avalanche. I think we have over 10,000 of those that have gone out. And then I got a smaller book, which is how to grow your practice through lunch and learns and talks and how to develop those. And then just about launch within the next few months, or it's actually done, but I've just decided to have as most of us do, an entrepreneurial new things. A new chapter is going to be added. My team is I'm driving them mad. So it's called Conversion Alchemy, and it specifically focuses on the journey in the beginning of a customer or patient working with you, day one, day two, the psychology of that prior to them coming in, that what we can do during the journey, what we can do after the journey that helps them, better chance of saying yes, staying longer, and referring.
Yeah. So, but you're in the UK, and
Yes.
and a majority of our viewers are in North America, right?
Yes.
Can they digitally download these books, or how do?
Actually, so I've got a website where they can go through the books. We send you a physical copy. All you do is pay for the shipping. It's actually a free book. It's at ryanriderbooks.com. ryanriderbooks.com. That's RIEDER, ryanriderbooks.com, and you can go check them out.
Nice. That's
Perfect.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, we're kind of winding down, and we could go on forever. I just love your stories. I love hearing, because the truth is exactly what you said. It hasn't changed. Like, it just hasn't. I mean, we built our practice on. I mean, we did those events and that kind of stuff, and they were fun. But after a while, we couldn't do them because we were seeing so many people. And yet, what we wanted to do was just really draw them in from our health class, and that was our greatest source of. And maybe you could, before we go to our final questions with you, is there a psychology right now why people don't do health classes? I mean, I still don't understand that. We have 3 daughters. They're all chiropractors. I don't think they do health classes, and totally cool. I mean, totally fine. But if I got into practice tomorrow, I'd be doing health classes because they just work for us.
Yeah, look, I think there's twofold. One is I also believe in horses for courses. So what I mean by that is, I think adding depending on where you put the health class. So let's say some docs like to do it prior to the initial consultation. Let's call a group report of findings a type of health class. And then some docs like to do it after the patient says yes to their care, and they have an orientation type. So there's actually 3 different ways and 3 different benefits to doing it. But let's talk about the docs that, for instance, like to drive people to a health class in some way, shape, or form prior to initial consultation. Again, horses for courses a little bit. If you are incredibly good, like you both were, at generating that amount of customers in one day, then actually we want to add a hoop in there, what we call a hoop, an extra step for them to jump through, almost slow down the process, because we can't process all of them, for example, and the ones that we want to be processing are the ones that are higher. Well, I don't like the word higher quality. I like the word perhaps better suited to your practice.
Yes.
So actually, what the health class does, which you guys know so well because it was your bread and butter, is it just helps you have a funner practice. Yeah. You work. You may have less, if you have the luxury of actually being able to throw some fish back in the sea and go, look, we're not right for you right now. We're not right for each other. You just end up with a much higher quality and then ultimately a funner practice. And interesting, in the new book that I've got now called Conversion Alchemy, it's about sales. It's funny, we want to be good at sales and marketing so we almost don't have to sell. I know that sounds reverse, but like the process of selling happens way before the sale, i.e., the more hoops they jump through, the more videos, the best patient is, hey, I've been watching your stuff for 6 months online. I'm receiving your emails for 6 months online. It's actually, there's a lot to be said for slowing down the process. Right. So that by the time they come, they're at a higher need or whatever it is. So that's, now be careful if you're watching this. And for instance, at this point in your career, you're seeing 1 or 2 new patients a week. By adding another hoop in, we can't really afford to add another hoop in, because at this point we just need to get bodies in front of us and more people, so we can start building some momentum. And your time will come to go, whoa, let's just be a little bit more picky about who ends up in that. And let's remember, we're a one-on-one, especially in the initial consultation. So you have a finite amount of new patients you can process in a week. So the biggest mistake we can making at some point in your career is having too many conversations with unqualified leads.
That's right.
But Dr. Ron, at your point in your career, like having lots of time there, that is very, very pertinent. But perhaps in your first year of practice, you process as many as you can, and you speak to as many people as you can.
That's so true.
And you practice and you learn and you get it out, because perhaps you don't have as many leads coming through. So I think why people have fallen out of love with them in some way is because it's become a little bit easier to have it's like almost a virtual health class now. If you put out regular content, the problem is most people aren't putting out regular content. So they think they're doing it by putting out regular content. They're not, and they're not doing the talk. And I think there's an element of not being that glamorous. I always talk about when you go do lunch and learns, no one really talks about, I've got the flip chart, I'm lugging it across town, I'm ringing on the doorbell, and the guy at the doorbell in the office is saying, "Hi, is that the chiropodist?" And like, no, the chiropractor. What? The massage therapist? No. And then no one knows you're coming. Yeah. And then there's supposed to be 45 people in the room and there's 10, and your ego takes a hit. And you know the story, right?
Oh yeah.
But you gotta go through those challenges, and you'll still get 3 or 4 new patients every single time you show up, who've sat there for an hour listening to your story, and the quality is amazing, etc. So I think perhaps it's got to become a bit too easy, and there's a negative thing actually, to reach customers via social media and stuff like that people aren't just willing to drive all the way across town and do the thing. But then what's funny for most people is that most people who generate a lot of new customers online complain about the quality of the new customer online, yet don't want to jump in the car and drive halfway across town. So you can't have your cake and eat it.
No,
yes.
No.
But I hope that kind of encapsulates the question.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
It does, because it's so interesting, because it's like everyone wants new patients, right? But when people are needing new patients, it's different than wanting to take care of people, right? And that attitude that we go into it with, right? Like, can I help you? Can I help these people, right? And if somebody, I think, Mary, what our big word was next.
Yeah.
Next. If it was not right for them, we don't take it as an ego crush, and they might come back as long as they leave on a good term. They know who we are, where we are, and what we do. And if it's not right from at that time, we don't judge them. We just go next. Right. And who's the next person that we can see and be able to take care of? And, you could build a practice just on family and friends. And that's really what we should be doing, because those are the qualified. When you're looking for that word before, right? It's a qualified person, but I love it. It's awesome. Hey, we'll get you back on the show again, and we'll just talk about the whole marketing thing, right?
Yeah, I know we have to wrap this up, but I can't let one thing go, because I think it's a gem for someone. And I think you just absolutely said an absolute gem. Is I think that kind of encapsulated learning the skill set of marketing or whatever, so that the neediness disappears. Because there's nothing more unattractive than the need for the thing. And then the service changes and they can feel it.
Yes.
It's like, I want to help you. But it's like, I might laugh at me here, but I always say that in the process of selling or offering your service, neediness is a horrible stink.
It is.
It's a horrible stench that just comes whether you like, and it's very difficult. And this is why these podcasts and life ways are so important. It's very difficult to serve at high levels without an abundance, because it's, they fake it till you make it. Well, it's pretty tough to fake it when you can't pay your bills.
That's right. Very true. Very true.
So the abundance then comes, and you have less neediness, and then you just serve and you have less sale, and they can feel it. So I just wanted to point that gem you gave us there.
Yeah.
Well, and I think Ron and I, in our practice, like, we held each other accountable. When one of us even started to smell like we need that neediness, we just looked at each other and said, remember, like, we're just serving here. We're here to serve people. So those, like, I don't know, those low value people, or those patients who came in were like, oh my God, this is not a good fit. We changed our mindset. We're like, that person, even if they say no, they could come back later. So we stopped even putting that, whatever that label was. Remember that, Ron?
Yeah, absolutely. It just wasn't the right, the way we held it, it's just not the right time for them.
The right time, yeah.
Right now, right? Hey, we got to wrap this up. We got 2 questions, 30-second answers. They're phenomenal questions. We ask everybody from the life, who's on Life by Life West, these questions. So Mary, you want to ask the first one?
I'll ask the first one. If you could go back and give advice to Ryan, a first quarter student or first try in chiropractic college, what advice would you give him?
Just the first thing that comes to my mind is just observe, 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 observe. Stay close, stay close, stay close, stay close. Just like via osmosis, it's just this weird thing that happens when you hang around those people who ooze those certainty and I wish I'd observed way more than I did. Like that would be my go. I don't care. And it was a bit different in South Africa, right? Because there are not thousands of offices to observe,
Yeah.
but I certainly didn't seek them out like I should have.
Yeah.
So as if you're watching this right now and you're a student and they're at that level, you just cannot observe enough. And I'll say that the most successful associate I ever worked with in the short space of time, by the time they took a position with us, they had physically observed over 100 offices.
That's great.
And I was like, wow, that's a great place to be when you finish college.
Great place. Great place. Second question. Same question, but now it's Dr. Ryan Rieder today, looking back at Dr. Ryan Rieder, who just graduated.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them knowing what you know now?
I would say be prepared to be cool with mistakes. Time's a great leveler. I'd say be humble. Because I don't care how well you're doing your first year or whatever it was, which was I just had one of those amazing starts to my career. But time's a great level, and it's not if, it's when a challenge happens. And I would say from that perspective, just all kind of the same answer, right? Just make sure if it's observations while you're a student, it's when you're out, and that you're going to have to invest. So whatever it is for you, but stay close to a mentor, to a coach, whatever it is. And still today, no matter every level is a new devil, I will always have a coach. And actually, I am currently right now I'm part of a private mastermind with entrepreneurs, and I start tomorrow for 2 days, 4 times a year. Drag myself here. We have to have all our P&Ls. I have to present all my figures, net profits, the whole works, to a group of 10 entrepreneurs tomorrow. And I'm hustling tonight to get everything ready. So as someone that's achieved a fair level of success, by some definition, I'm still putting myself very much in. I've always got mentors and coaches. So I'd go back and go do it, but probably even more aggressively.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is stay humble, because our ego just stops all that stuff. I can do it. I'm good enough. And then they get slapped, and then they blame it on everybody else. But those, instead of just looking here, right? Never point the finger, not out, it always goes in, right?
I got 3 pointing straight back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, it was wonderful having you all the way from the UK. It was wonderful. I know that you got to go get dinner and prepare your program for tomorrow that you got to be able to share. So on behalf of myself and Dr. Mary, we're so pleased to have you today. And I know we've been trying to get this set up. You were stuck in South Africa, and all these different things. So it was wonderful. So thank you for being with us.
It's an absolute pleasure, and just amazing work that the college is doing and you all doing. So thank you much for all you do for the profession and having me on today. I had a great time.
You're great, Ryan.
And to our viewers, thank you. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for constantly sharing this. I mean, our views are just so huge, and it's because of you, that you share this with people that don't necessarily need to hear it, but you'd like to have them hear it, right? Because I think everyone needs to have really good food. And, we definitely believe that what we put in our brains or what we put above our atlas, is healthier than what we put in our bodies, because the toxicity that can go on our heads can affect us tremendously. So this, we hope, is a healthy meal for you. And keep coming back. We drop these Life by Life Wests every other week. And the weeks in between, we have our Life West leadership line. So join in on those. And until our next episode, we just know that we love and appreciate you. Keep going out, changing the world, doing everything you can to share with people that the power is within them and that they are magnificent just like you are. So thanks, and we'll see you again.